Our main issue for this week will be the legal recognition of same-sex unions as marriage, or for short, same-sex marriage. Here is the main question we're dealing with. Currently, in many states, the law runs as follows. If a same-sex couple meets all of the same requirements as an opposite-sex couple for marriage, except for the fact that it's a same-sex couple, and they request a license to have a marriage ceremony that is legally recognized as creating a marriage, then they cannot have that. The mere fact that it involves two men or two women is enough in many states to bring us to the conclusion that they will be denied. But is that right? Some people will argue, no, that's a violation of people's rights. That's a wrongful form of discrimination. If a same-sex couple meets all of the other requirements for marriage, then the state should grant them marriage just as the state grants it to opposite-sex couples. So our question is going to be the legal recognition of same-sex unions as marriage. Now, along the way, we're also going to look at the question, is there something wrong with various forms of, I'll say, romantic activity between two people of the same sex, between two men or between two women? In this presentation, we're going to focus on that question. John Corvino argues that no, there's nothing inherently wrong about homosexual behaviors. If certain behaviors are the same as the equivalent heterosexual behaviors in all respects, but they just happen to involve two men or two women, that alone can't make the behavior wrong. Of course, if a relationship involves exploitation or mistreatment, etc., well, then that would be wrong no matter whether it's two men or two women. But certain forms of what he will call homosexual behaviors are morally acceptable. And he's going to present his argument for that claim and respond to some arguments against it. In this presentation, we're going to look at his argument on that issue. Now, before I go into the details of his argument, I want to stress something important about this issue. This is a very sensitive issue. It means a lot to a lot of people, and many people have been hurt because of issues surrounding this. In particular, many LGBT persons have suffered greatly. Some have been beaten, some have been jailed, some have seen friends commit suicide, at least partly due to the treatment that society gives to LGBT persons. So I'd like us all keep that in mind and give an extra measure of respect to people who disagree with us on that issue. And I would say that applies especially to people who believe that homosexual behaviors are wrong, or people who believe that same-sex marriages should not be recognized. Yes, there has been a certain amount of mistreatment of people who oppose same-sex unions in the legal system, but it's not widespread and extensive, And it is extremely rare, if it ever happens, that someone is killed for opposing same-sex unions. The closest thing I know to a case was a case a few years ago in which someone attempted to kill several members of a group called the Family Research Council, because of their opposition to same-sex unions. But for the most part, people are not treated with violence because they oppose same-sex unions. So people who are opposed to it should be especially careful to show an extra level of respect to people who believe that homosexual behaviors and/or same-sex marriage are morally acceptable.